Welcome to another episode of The Future of. I'm Semeyi Zake. On the table this week, we're discussing retail and consumerism. From the recession days, so much has changed in the sector. Consumers have different needs, behaviors, and their spending patterns as well are changing. Retailers, of course, have to tailor-make their business strategies to meet these new demands. Joining the discussion today are Pete Case, CEO at Gloo, and Preston Gaddy. He's a Divisional Director for Strategic Retail Leasing at Broll Properties. Gentlemen, welcome to the both of you.
Hi.
Preston, perhaps let me start off with you, and can you give us a sense or an overview of where the industry retail stands as we speak?
That's been a tough year for the retailers. There have been a handful that have posted good results, but on average we're seeing 3 to 3.5, maybe 4% growth month on month. Nothing shooting the lights out at this point in time. We see the value retailers posting good results, encouraging results for that matter. The likes of the Pepcore Group, Mr. Price Group, all posting double-digit growth over the past year. And that speaks to what's happening with the consumers, I think, with them being more burdened with transport costs, e-tolls on the way, utility costs rising. Their budget has been cut in terms of spending, so they are looking to the value retailers more and more for their purchases. But your grocery sector still continues to perform well. ShopRite Checkers posted very good results recently. Pick and Pay, there's good signs of recovery with the Pick and Pay group. Woolworths posting good results. So as a whole, the grocery sector is still holding its own. But once again, the consumers' budgets are very tight.
Peter, I'll bring you in just now, but Preston, that was a picture of the local front. Give us, on the global frontier, what's happening then? Are we seeing similar patterns?
Yes, very similar. Signs that Europe is coming out of the recession. Most of the retailers across Europe are still struggling to make decent gains. The sector's also just barely showing 2-3% growth year on year. But there are certainly signs of recovery in Europe, as in the US as well.
Pete, your turn. I mean, you're looking at it from a digital perspective. How far have we come when we talk about how consumers engage digitally with the retail sector?
Well, I think the first thing to point out is there's a lot of change, a lot of really exciting change. So a lot of brands and retailers are really looking for how they can embrace digital and digital technology to connect and differentiate themselves with consumers. And we're seeing a lot of different brands that we work with testing and trialing things that maybe are more common day globally, but they're starting to do locally. I think brands are starting to realize that it's less of a broadcasting message just around price points. It's more of a conversation and engagement they need to get into, because a lot of the consumers are broadcasters themselves now, and they can actually influence spend of their peer group. So those are things that brands are having to kind of adjust to, less of a as I say, a broadcast message and more of an always-on approach to try and just keep connected with the consumer and make the consumer realize all of the things they're doing beyond just the product as well. I mean, brands are now exposed, all the information is exposed to the consumer. So it's just as much about what the brand's doing outside the product and service as it is the product sitting on the shelf.
Being connected with the consumer, how important is that? Is that being factored into the strategies that the retailers are rolling out today?
Yes, certainly. You have seen some of the retailers as of late going with an online strategy as well, adopting that approach. Consumers have a multitude of choices nowadays, be it with retailers and shopping centres alike. And if the shopping centre of choice is not seen to be connecting with them, then they will go elsewhere. As I mentioned, there's a multitude of choices, particularly in the shopping centre field.
When we look at that, what's happening when we look at how consumers are using mobile maybe to purchase things, to interact with these big brands? What sort of trends are you seeing there?
We're seeing the highest increase of kind of online connectivity with mobile. I mean, the fixed line connections in South Africa, just due to its geographic size, is very expensive to roll out. So, mobile is the space to watch. But I think there's a whole load of other technologies that are very exciting around data as well, that brands are starting to use in retail. For instance, we're working with brands to actually delve into the shopping basket itself and allow brands and retailers to understand on the fly what it is that people are actually shopping, to track their patterns. And what that does is it helps the brands respond much quicker to the needs and the changing needs of the consumer. And in the same way, online, be it mobile or PC, we're using data to target people much more specifically, to understand, where have they been, what are their interests, collecting profiles around them so that we serve them up advertising that is very relevant to them, rather than this kind of old-style scattergun approach. And that's, in these tough economic times, and it's giving, recently some of our campaigns are reducing cost of sale by 400% or upwards, just based on using new technologies, which is really exciting, I think, for brands.
You recently wrote an article saying that click-throughs and likes alone are too limited to measure digital work.
Right.
Just talk us briefly through that. What message were you trying to get across on that front?
Right. I think data and measurement is obviously very aligned to digital and digital marketing, which is what we specialize in. It's just the level of data that you decide to use and that you decide to kind of understand and unpack is very important. So the surface data, such as just click-throughs, really is just one very simple metric, but there's a lot of other metrics that we're encouraging brands to really understand. So, for instance, in digital advertising, whether someone clicks through to your site is not necessarily the performance measure you should be looking at. You should rather look at probably the conversion, because you can have a lot of click-throughs, but they may be the completely wrong audience, for instance. Also online does a lot of awareness. So if you're trying to tell people about a particular purchase or a particular product in store, people might rather see that and then go and actually go into store. So measuring the click-through in that scenario isn't necessarily relevant either, because it might not be available online, for instance. So I think it's just, we're working with brands to try and let them understand as well what type of measurements they should be using and what type of metrics they should use to help their businesses perform better, especially in these economic times right now.
Preston, you're nodding there.
Yeah, indeed. We see that the consumers are doing a lot of their investigation on product online by their smartphones. They might still head off to the shopping centre on a Saturday morning to purchase that specific product, but they won't be trawling the mall, going from one shop to the next trying to find a specific product. They would have done all of the investigation online and prior to actually even deciding to make that purchase. We have seen a significant amount of that, and we see that in the from a tenant perspective, we're seeing a lot less travel agents occupying shop space. It's most of it's done online now. Unfortunately, video shops are taking significant strain. Download a movie and the various other formats that you can use to download.
Does this change the malls of today as we see it? I mean, you're saying that you're seeing people do a lot of things online, so they're not physically there. Will we be seeing that playing out more, kind of seeing less office space occupied?
Well, we don't necessarily see less space being occupied, but it'll evolve into a different format. People still want to connect with each other face to face. They still want to feel that bonding with each other. And the shopping centres of today need to take that into consideration in their planning and obviously create more public interaction space. You will see, and they call it the omni-channel or multi-channel approach, where people will order and in fact engage and transact online, but will still have to go off and collect it at a specific point. So the store formats might be reduced, but there's still warehousing opportunities for that matter, where people will still have to go and collect those purchase items, unless they get delivered, of course. But yeah, it's a case of evolving. The shopping centre developers and owners and managers of today need to be aware of and I wouldn't call it a threat, it's a presence that they need to embrace.
It's an opportunity.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, the fact that the consumer is now more empowered with information just means that they come to the store understanding a lot about the product. So brands just need to understand that. And I think we're going to see a lot more screens, a lot of self-service in retail space. I mean,
Yes.
you look at Edgar's right now, you can download an app and check stock control to see if your size is available, rather than going and talking to somebody who might not know on the floor. Those are very useful things. I think it's just about the retailers seeing the opportunity of digital, but people still want the face-to-face. This whole idea of digital is going to remove face-to-face, I think
and that's what I was going to ask
outdated.
you. I mean, we've talked about the retailers and using the technology, but is there an engagement from the consumers as well? I mean, what are you seeing on that front?
Well, we're seeing a lot of consumers obviously use their digital voice to say whether they think a service is bad or a product is bad. And it's how, again, the brands react to that. And one of our biggest clients is F&B, and there's a 24-hour turnaround, very fast turnaround on sorting out people's issues on social media. That obviously ties in with their whole brand positioning of how can we help you. But I think more and more brands are seeing this and realizing that if they adopt a very quick relationship and turnaround to issues, then they can bring consumers back on board. Ultimately, consumers are looking for that relationship beyond just purchase.
Okay. Right, so it's all about relationship. I'm going to ask each of you in about 30 seconds. If I say the next big thing that's going to change this sector, what's your opinion?
Yeah, I think it's there's in the South African context, we're seeing a lot of international players coming into our space, and they are very tech savvy. The likes of the Zaras, the Cotton Ons, those kind of brands, and H&M, for instance, have now committed to coming into South Africa, and they're very tech savvy and they understand consumers, I think, a little bit better in a sense. Not putting our local retailers down, but they understand that process of engagement with the consumers, I think, a little bit better than our current market. So I think that's going to change the game. Certainly from a exposure perspective, you're going to see a lot more differentiation at shopping centres. These new international, fresh, sexy brands that speak to those consumers are certainly going to be around in the years to come.
Pete?
Well, I mean, in the digital world, online shopping is going to be obviously huge once people have the delivery mechanism sorted out in the physical world. But I mean, in the physical retail space, I think data is the big play. People mining data to understand what consumers want, when they want it, and to be able to optimize that retail experience around the individual as they come in store. Mobile in our market is obviously the thing that people have in their pocket. So I think it's the way that retailers work with mobile, especially mobile redemption at point of sale. There's some very exciting things we're doing with the Spur Group and other people around actually redeeming vouchers, offers at mobile, and then self-service. People want to self-serve. So whether it's the British Airways app that allows you to self-service your check-in, all of these kind of things are very interesting opportunities for retailers. We're going to see a lot more change, definitely.
Right. Thanks to both of you. We'll leave it there for now. That was Pete Kay, CEO of Gloo and Preston Gaddy, Divisional Director for Strategic Retail Leasing. Till next time, goodbye.